Hey everybody, Tom Miller here. Welcome to VGM Breakdown, a new show where we're going to be taking some of our favorite video game music tracks and breaking them down to see what makes them tick. Today on our first episode, we're going to be taking a look at the opening theme to one of my all-time favorite soundtracks, Final Fantasy VI. Let's go! So I remember the very first time that I started to play Final Fantasy VI when I was a kid, or Final Fantasy III as it was known to us here in the United States at the time. And there was so much difference between it and so many of the games that I'd played before. It starts off with this black screen with the logo in flames. It has this really dark, really ominous feeling to it at the start. And that is in no better way exemplified than how the music starts. Check this out. So the opening theme to Final Fantasy VI is split up into 3 different sections. And here is how it begins. Just this really low note, and then it stacks up in perfect force on top of each other. It makes this really crazy, ominous, dissonant sound. And then just straight into these 2 massive chords. Ah man, and then it repeats again. It just sounds like the world is coming to an end from the very beginning. I love it to this day. And then immediately from that, we drop down into this piano part. And it has this really lovely, delicate sound to it. The tempo fluctuates. It has this really neat conducted feel. It's in 6/4, but it's very free-form in how it sounds. And as it continues, the tempo evens out a little bit, but it still has this really cool pulsing sound to it. And then it just sort of beautifully winds down into this final chord, or final arpeggio. And that's the first section of it. That's the very first thing you hear when you boot up the game. It's just beautiful. And then you get into the second section of it, which immediately... And you hear, it's just the sound of this devastation. In the beginning of the game, the Empire has taken over the world. They're harnessing these magical creatures to tighten their grasp on humanity. The whole world is in a really desperate place, and you just hear that. And then these block chords. So... And this whole thing just brings back so many echoes of like the Imperial March, or not Imperial March, but like the Star Wars Imperial themes. But it has just a real beautiful, sad, and just hopeless sound to it. And I know I'm smiling and talking about it. And then there's that beautiful little augmented arpeggio in the harp, and I'm not really doing that much justice to it because, you know, I can't sing 30-second notes all that well, but it works out. So that is just describing the backstory of the world, and it complements just the general hopeless feel that the people in the world have at the time. And then we get the best part of all. Okay, so by now we've established that this world is not in a good place. There is very little hope had by most of the people living in it. Everything is dark, everything is terrible. We just have this overarching view of a bad situation, but we don't really have a personal feel to it. So how are we going to deal with this? And that's where the third part of the piece comes in. Let's take a listen. So as this is playing, we see a snowy field with 3 soldiers walking in mech suits, and this melody starts. Da, 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 dum. And this is the main theme of one of the characters in the game, as I'm sure most of the people listening to this know, Terra. And Terra is in the lead, and this is this melody playing I won't lie, is one of the main reasons that I wanted to become a composer when I was growing up. I heard this and I just thought, man, this is so beautiful and so moving. And to me, the three parts of this each represent a different part of the Final Fantasy VI world. You have the first part of it, that first organ, the massive organ chords followed by the piano solo, is sort of like this chaotic thing, and it gets repeated actually in the final boss theme. So it's sort of like the chaotic, the evil part of it. And then you have the Empire represented by that really dark, plotting, sort of dissonant, very Star Wars sounding Imperial March. And then you have this beautiful, sad melodic thing that represents just like all the people who are going to rise up to fight against that and eventually be victorious over it. And at this moment, you know, Terra, the character, this is her theme. Eventually it gets reprised in a much more hopeful way, but at this point she's actually being mind controlled. So she's in a really, really dark place too. But you know, it just like, it has that like glimmer of just like, we're not doing great right now, but we're gonna make it. So anyway, it is, to me, it is one of the most powerful and really expressive beginnings to a musical score ever. This whole score, I mean, you don't need me to tell you that the Final Fantasy VI score is a masterpiece, but it absolutely is, and it deserves to be said. So anyway, this was the very first video. I hope to do these on a more consistent basis. This is the very first one, but I hope to do them on a regular basis. I hope you really enjoyed, and stay tuned for more. I can't wait. Thank you.